So I overheard something interesting in the Kabbalion, which I know is not definitely a Christian text. It's way more Gnostic and obviously has a lot to do with some interesting concepts. But it went over this concept of Kathodos. So it's from the Greek word to descend, and it has obviously a negative context to it. But comparing it to an Aristotelian descended and ascended form of something, it went into all on how well gender manifests itself, on how different parts of humanity and science manifest themselves around positive and negative forces, because obviously with that you need to have positive and negative forces interacting with one another for those dynamics or those opposites and dualism to manifest themselves and or dynamically be, well, not only diametrically opposed to one another, but more in a different fashion. Not only are they dynamic and opposed to one another, but they're more alike than they thought. So because there's definite overlaps with things like that. But what I thought was interesting in the use of the word kathodos, when that descended form happens, a negative connotation is always attached to it. And more so, that negative connotation can manifest itself in a feminine characteristic where it wants to ascend to or center itself around a masculine characteristic. So this is not to say, this is not some, women need men, men need women. Naturally, that's what God implied. But that's the natural cause. But what's interesting is that even in this Gnostic text and the use of kathodos, it was pointed out that it's a natural occurrence. It's something that occurs in nature. And with science trying to prove these manifestations of energy, either circling around or rejecting, that, the feminine has to be led or has to manifest itself around the masculine. Otherwise, it loses all of its identity as well, and it drops all of its identity off, and it becomes something else. So feminism, right, becomes masculine. The whole attack with against toxic masculinity, in a way, that's very feminist as well. But it's interesting because it's like, well, now you're replacing something you don't like, but yet the thing that you don't like, you're becoming. So this is where that concept of kathodos and the Kabbalion was really interesting to me.